It is the Era Indomitus. Half the galaxy is cloaked in darkness, with over 500,000 worlds belonging to humankind's domain cut off from the glorious light of the Emperor's astronomicon, preyed upon by the hated heretic or the loathsome xenos. For many devout citizens, the prognostications are clear. It is the end of days as we know. A new era dawns, but the end is nigh. Ancient Xenos legend tell of this era, a tale of the end of days passed down through generations in their oldest legends, retold 1,000,000 times throughout the ages. Many more of our own people point to the dire events of late, our struggle against the Dark Pantheon, or ongoing efforts to stem the tide of Xenos who have come to pick at the bones of our once great empire. Each successful repelling of these craven beings taking their toll on our glorious Imperium's efforts to maintain control of only even half the known galaxy. How do we know this is the end? Why should humans, the superior species and rightful inhabitants of the Milky Way galaxy, make ready for our last days? We will consider these various tales of Xenos cultures and how they may, Emperor forgive my heresy, relate to our current era as well as the most recent galactic troubles. Listen on. A race who continues to blight this galaxy, despite our best efforts, that is the Eldari, tell of a dire time and end of days called the Rana Dandra. This tale is one of the oldest of their people, considering they are perhaps one of the eldest cultures within the material plane. That certainly says a great deal. The Rana Dandra, the last dire battle between Eldari and Chaos powers, it is said will conclude in the destruction of both. Well, it seems the Pantheon of Chaos are at their most powerful now, following the destruction of beloved Cadia and the splitting of the galaxy, which is the Cicatrix Maledictum. This fact must strike fear into the hearts of every one of the Eldari race. For we have intelligence, they have all reacted to the formation of the rift in their own curious, alien way. Perhaps the most striking, and indeed the closest to home for our Imperium, is the founding of a newly united Eldari culture called the Inari. In an attempt to combat the ever-growing threat posed by She Who Thirsts, that is the chaos entity known as Slaanesh, the ancient Eldar Farseer, Eldrad Ulthran, has again attempted to twist the strands of fate in the favour of his aloof race and awoken the Eldari deity of death. This creature of warp essence is referred to as Inead and has, we are told, chosen a mortal champion, one who then travelled with the holy Primarch himself, the avenging son, Rabute Guilliman, lord of the 13th Legion of old, on his pilgrimage to Holy Terra. There are many whispers within the Imperial Court on Terra and beyond that the Primarch consorts with Xenos most foul, and so walks the line of heresy, and more yet claim the actions of Lord Guilliman in collaborating with the newly founded faction of the Inari are of a foresight scantily understandable by mere mortals such as we, for it is their mission, so it is told, to conquer the youngest of the Pantheon, Slaanesh, thus freeing the entire Eldari race of the dark shadow looming over them all, which eagerly anticipates their demise, lest it feast on their lamenting souls for eternity. If the price to be paid for the destruction of such a vile creature is to act in cahoots with Xenos, at least for a time, perhaps that is a sin best lived now and paid for at a later date. Within the Ranadandra, a foreboding portent that the end time dawns is that their fabled warriors, called Phoenix Lords, will be summoned together by the one they call Fugan, Burning Lance. In a galaxy riven by not only madness and betrayal, but also ringing with the footsteps of ancient legends long since thought lost, I must say, this isn't inconceivable. We have received word through our logisticians and tacticians that there have been sporadic reports, witness sightings of ghostly, darting figures within Craftworld Eldari war hosts, whose uncanny movements seem to flow with the tide of battle, as if anticipating its ebb and flow. Our interrogators, in their questioning of captive Eldari warriors, also tell of the mocking threats delivered by these subjects of their torturous skills that the so-called Phoenix Lords of their species have begun to unite, paving the way for their race to once again rule the stars. Of course, these are the utterings of half-flayed beings, but it does give credence to the eyewitness and vidlog accounts within active battle zones as of late. Such accounts recall a massive Eldari utilising a scythe-tipped weapon of bone, as effective in close combat as at range, thrusts and lunges with the weapon, as if it weighed naught but a sheet of parchment. That, and the harrowing screams of the Banshee Queen, those in particular ring in my ears during my periods of rest. It can be said that even the ancient Necron-Tur race are concerned that the end of the galaxy is nigh. None other than their supreme overlord, the Silent King himself, has returned from his self-imposed exile. No more does he travel the dark, empty void between galaxies, but instead oversees the reawakening of his dread peoples from their slumber inside ancient tomb complexes. Many a verdant and loyal imperial planet has been submitted to the deathly attention of this race, ignorant that the foundations of their own hive cities, just basilica, or grand cathedrals, lay upon truly ancient, slumbering evils, such as the Necron tomb complexes. The Silent King Zarek truly worries that the presence of two mighty evils within the Milky Way galaxy will deplete the material plane of all life. Those are the Tyranid Menace and the Dark Servants of the Ruinous Powers. For a being as ancient as Zarek, one who was already great in power and deed, who has known consciousness for tens of millions of years, to react in such a way that is hastily unite his entire race against these two threats is troubling portents. Concerning the movements of xenos, I have kept abreast of rumours concerning the Necron race in particular, what little exists, that is. For all their seeming antiquity across the Milky Way galaxy's varied species, they have only very recently come to our attention, following their awakening from their eons-long slumber. Because of this fact, this newly dawned awareness of the many threats the various species dotted throughout the galaxy pose, I believe we can perhaps take some learnings from the actions or foresight of the Silent King Zarek, and apply them to our own doctrines and philosophies on how to deal with such beasts as the Tyranids, or the entities which call themselves gods within the warp. Within my most recent audio transmission, which you can locate here by tapping on the screen or within the description of this file, I raised to you my concerns of the impending invasion of Tyranid High Fleet Leviathan within Segmentum Pacificus. I believe, as do a number of my learned compatriots, that the massive invasion force has surfaced so closely to the heart of the Imperium, currently lurking within Segmentum Pacificus, for the express purpose of devouring Holy Terra, the cradle of humanity. To make matters worse, the malign influence of Tyranid gene-stealer cults have been detected recently on Holy Terra. The glorious Captain General Trajan Valoris bringing them to battle in an effort to kill the infection at its root. Within Terra, its almost eternal maze of subterranean ancient cityscapes, continent-spanning hive cities and sky civilizations, there exists many dark and secretive places for the cults of the so-called Star Children to consort with their diabolical patriarch, as well as plan their inevitable uprising. This is to say nothing of the billions of humanity who constantly flow onto the surface of Holy Terra on pilgrimage as well as sacred business. These are a never-ending source of hosts to infect, to both further the numbers and influence of the cult. Could it be that not only the number of threats facing our sacred race, but also the power they bring to bear simultaneously in our time of greatest division, that we may yet fail in our duty to defend the birthplace of our species? I worry I speak heresy, but even were both our beloved Primarchs to unite and face these numerous threats, bringing all Astartes chapters to bear, they lack the sheer numbers to adequately defend our Imperium, spanning the Segmentum Pacificus through to Ultima Segmentum, against the newly freed powers of the Warp, Chaos Legions, Tyranid Hive Fleets, and numberless other Xenos predations, such as the Great Green War Gazkul. The days of our hallowed Imperium truly do seem to be numbered. I will continue my holy verses and benedictions to the mighty Emperor of mankind. I will rise to the challenge daily. That is my mission, nay, my purpose in rooting out threats to the Imperium of mankind, and trust that the Imperial Navy, Astra Militarum, Astartes, and other sacred arms of our mighty military can not only halt, but defeat the tides of xenos and heretic which converge on the throne world once and for all. Now, in my opinion, guys, I'm glad that within the last few years, we, as the fanbase of 40k, are finally witnessing a progression of a narrative which has stayed mostly unchanged for decades. I have found myself asking the question recently though, how many more threats can stack against humanity before there truly is no hope for mankind, or at least the Imperium as we currently know it? The situation for mankind cannot become much more dire, and if the species is saved by a last-minute intervention by some other antagonist or even their own efforts, it would seem somewhat anticlimactic after the years of build-up Games Workshop and Black Library have created. Contrarily, were the forces of Chaos or a Xenos faction to be successful and kill the Emperor, this would have the potential to end the setting as we know it. If we take a moment to compare the narrative situation and protagonists between the two main game systems of Games Workshop, that is 40k and Age of Sigmar, these two settings are beginning to align somewhat. In the Age of Sigmar plot, the human race and indeed all the forces of order are the minority across realms of the Materium and are constantly besieged by the Chaos gods. Across the entire realms, which would each be a rough equivalent to segmentums in the 40k setting, it is Chaos who holds the majority of territory and force numbers, with the races of order holding out in small fortified bastions, putting up what resistance they can, venturing out of these safe zones at their own peril. Much akin to what we have experienced in the Imperium Nihilus. With the splitting of the galaxy that is the Cicatrix Maledictum, the 40k setting has taken a giant step in a similar direction, albeit maintaining its own identity, as they are definitely not the same situation. However, how much worse can the narrative become for humankind before the only thing left to do is put the final nail in the coffin? The galaxy is torn asunder, the Imperium has effectively lost contact with half its realm, a massive blow that an already corrupt empire could likely not endure. Chaos warlords run rampant across the Imperium Nihilus, robbing the Imperium's beleaguered defenders of both manpower and resources to swell their own ranks, marshalling for a final push into Imperium Sanctus. On top of this, the Orc warlord, Gazkul, has amassed himself the greatest war since Ulanor, or the War of the Beast. The Tyranid Hive fleets, which have drained so many of the Imperium's resources just to barely hold them at bay, have reared once again, this time in the Segmenta Pacificus, close to Terra in larger numbers than ever, dwarfing all other invasions prior to this. And whilst all this transpires, the ancient Necron overlord Sarek, the Silent King, watches the human race struggle to survive, planning his own intervention, if only to claim humanity for his own race, shells in which to reverse the fated biotransference which doomed his race 60 million years prior. I don't know how many more apocalypse-style events can transpire in this setting without basically hitting the reset switch. Perhaps one of the most striking lore evolutions as of late, which encourages this mode of thought, is the fact that Games Workshop and Black Library have even begun to work in the Emperor of Mankind's current ambitions into their evolving narrative. Now, there are many ways the writers at Games Workshop and Black Library could resurrect the Emperor, or detail him having some input into the actions and direction of the Imperium, while still avoiding portraying a fully powered Crusade-era style Emperor, walking around leading armies personally. So far, we've seen the Emperor converse with Guilliman when the Avenging Sun made his pilgrimage to Terra. Then he intervened on Rabute's behalf during the last installment of the Dark Imperium, and now recently we've seen him communicate with Cypher within the throne room itself, seemingly instructing the fallen angel to hold off plunging the Lion's Blade into him for the time being. An act we can only assume for now is meant to enact a rebirth for the leader of mankind. The point I'm making is that with the fanbase being treated to all these firsts, such as the Emperor and his sons returning, half the Imperium falling to the realm of chaos, and the threats aligned against humankind greater than ever, anything that comes next, whether it be another threat or Imperial retaliation, has to be similarly powerful, just plainly overpowered, anticlimactic, or, as I've mentioned, an entire reset. I'd love to know your thoughts on this, and continue this conversation in our Discord and the comment section of the video. Check out the Discord link in the description below as we begin to create a lore and hobby community. If you'd like to support the channel and enjoy what we do, please check out the link in the description to Gap Games, where the channel receives a percentage of purchases made through that link. Besides that, a like, share, comment and subscribe does wonders to share the video and help it to gain traction with the algorithm. Thanks for tuning in, take it easy, have a good one.